Welcome back! We're talking again about Monkey by Wu Cheng-en, the abridged version of the longer Journey to the West. And in this episode, we're looking at the third adventure on the journey, and the last one that Arthur Waley includes in his shortened version. Aw man, only 3 stops on the way? But we'll see in this one that time is definitely constricted. And in fact, even in the full version, there's room for expansion, because the number of years that pass over this time, as well as the number of adventures they have, doesn't quite seem to match up with the tally at the end of the book. Even by now, we're not that far into the journey, and it's already been 7 years for Tripitaka. He's getting impatient to be there. I also want to point out that in this episode, children are threatened. There's a monster that eats children, and that sounds pretty awful. Because children generally are a representation of innocence. In Wei Dong-chen's graphic novel version of this story, he points out the fact that there are multiple children throughout this story. And the consumption of children is an idea that's reiterated a few times. Also, there's a monster that wants to eat Tripitaka, because Tripitaka is so pure and so good that by eating him, the monster will gain immortality. This idea shows up in other episodes that aren't in our book. For instance, there's a tree that grows fruits that look like babies. And when you eat them, you gain immortality. Guess what? Monkey eats some of them. But Tripitaka refuses to because they look like children. There's also an episode in which a small child becomes one of their greatest enemies, Red Sun or Red Boy. It's not an episode in this particular book, but it's one that views a child in a very negative light. Also remember, this is a worldview that sees children as reborn from previous lives. And a lot of those potentially were reborn because of sin and mistakes that they'd made. Look at Pigsy, for instance. He's reborn in a pig body because of his mistakes in the past. Wei Dong-chen, in his essay at the end of his graphic novel of this particular section, points out that innocence in this worldview is actually a state of mind. It's not necessarily all the things you've done in the past, but rather where you are right now. It's a complicated idea, and definitely part of our whole journey of growth. Are our characters maturing at this point? Well, they're certainly still playing a lot of pranks. Let's see what happens in this episode. So our heroes arrive at the edge of a huge river, and oh no, it's too big to cross. Pigsy chucks a rock in to see how deep it is, and Monkey flies up and tries to see the other side, but this river is enormous. And Tripitaka says, "Oh no, I've been trying so hard to get to India, and it's so hard." But nearby there's a little village, and they seem to be having a ceremony celebrating their Buddhist monks. So, of course, our Buddhist monks are very welcome. A couple of old men invite them in and give them lots of food, especially Pigsy, who ate enough for the whole village, but then tells them a very sad story. You see, they have a local monster, whose name is the Great King of Miracles. And he brings them rain when they need it and keeps their weather really great. But on the other hand, he eats a couple of children every year. It turns out that these 2 nice old men, who are both in their 60s, have been trying their whole lives to have children, and have finally had children, and now their children are the next ones that are supposed to be sacrificed and eaten by the Great King of Miracles. And so Monkey transforms himself into a little boy, the exact likeness of little War Boy, who's supposed to be the little boy who's sacrificed. And then he tells Pigsy to go ahead and transform himself into the little girl, Load of Gold. Pigsy hems and haws about this a lot. He's not very keen on being eaten by a monster. But finally he does begin to transform. However, he's not as good at transforming as Monkey is, and he's only able to transform his head into the little girl's head. But Monkey gives him a little extra magical boost, and he transforms into the little girl. That evening, the 2 of them wait for the giant monster. The Great King of Miracles arrives, ready to gobble them up, and when he asks what family they're from, Monkey replies with a whole lot of cheek. Ultimately, this leads the monster to get very angry, and begin to approach Pigsy instead. Pigsy, who's very afraid of being eaten, throws off his disguise and attacks the monster. The monster, realizing he's been set up, runs away and goes and hides under the river. Monkey and Pigsy return and tell everyone how they've chased off the Great King of Miracles, and everybody celebrates. Meanwhile, the Great King of Miracles has gone back into his palace under the river, and he's very grumpy and angry because he didn't get his meal and because he was chased off by the Monkey King. The Perch Mother hears his story and tells him how sad it is that he didn't get his meal, but also they both discuss how Tripitaka is a very holy priest, and if they were to eat him, they would gain immortality. And so the Great King of Miracles begins to think about this. The Perch Mother suggests a trick in which they freeze the river, making Tripitaka want to cross it on foot. And then the Great King of Miracles can open up the ice and grab Tripitaka and take him away from his disciples. The Great King gets very excited about this and decides it's an excellent plan. So that night, as everyone is sleeping, it begins to snow and get colder and colder until the entire river freezes over. Let it go, let it go. Wrong story. To further enhance their trick, some of the fish people transform themselves into what looks like peasant merchants who are crossing the ice on foot to sell their wares. As soon as he sees this, Tripitaka is so excited because it means that he can go on. It's time to cross the river. And so he convinces his disciples that it's time to go ahead and go on. All of them begin to walk across the frozen ice. They travel all day long and they still have not yet finished crossing this huge expanse of water. But they're pretty confident the ice is very thick, because Pigsy even tests it with his rake. However, about halfway across, the Great King of Miracles hears Tripitaka's footsteps, and he causes the ice to crack, and Tripitaka falls in! In fact, everybody falls in except for Monkey, who hears just in time and jumps into the air. The fish people grab Tripitaka and drag him down to the bottom. Everybody else manages to swim back to shore. But they've lost their master. Pigsy and Sandy are about ready to give up on him, but Monkey says, no, we're going to go down there and see what's going on. However, Monkey doesn't feel super confident in the water. He doesn't have real water skills like Pigsy and Sandy do. And yet Pigsy and Sandy are a little too nervous to go by themselves. And so Monkey convinces Pigsy to give him a ride down into the ocean to make it easier for him. However, Pigsy decides to play another prank, because Monkey's always messing with him. And so Pigsy decides, as they're swimming underwater, to give a big jump. However, Monkey has foreseen this, and he's plucked one of his hairs and transformed it into a copy of himself, which is hanging on to Pigsy instead. And Monkey, meanwhile, has transformed himself into a louse, which is hanging on to Pigsy's ear. When Pigsy jumps, the very light hair monkey floats away, and Pigsy feels like he's lost Monkey. But of course, Monkey's been right there the whole time. They finally get to the bottom of the river where they see the Turtle Palace, and there's the Great King of Miracles' home. They're a little afraid that maybe the Great King of Miracles has already eaten Tripitaka, but they ask directions from a crab mother, who shows them the way. Tripitaka is locked inside a box, and so Monkey tells him not to worry, that they're going to rescue him. He then sends Pigsy and Sandy against the Great King of Miracles, trying to lure him up to the surface where Monkey has a better chance of beating him. It works for a moment, but as soon as the Great King of Miracles sees Monkey, he dashes and hides away. That's it, says Monkey, we're going to get some support. And so he flies to find the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin. She, however, makes him wait for a while because she's busy in her bamboo garden. Monkey's very impatient because he wants to free his master, but she continues to make him wait. She's making something. A few minutes later, she comes out holding a bamboo basket that she's apparently made. And in fact, she hasn't even taken time to do her makeup or comb her hair yet. But she goes with Monkey up to the river, and then, scooping the basket through the river 7 times, she draws it up, and inside is a fish. Monkey says, oh, that's all good and well, but when are we going to stop the monster? But it turns out that the fish is the monster, because the monster is really Kuan Yin's old goldfish, who was listening to the scriptures that she recited as she walked around her koi garden, and learned a whole bunch of magic tricks from them. Then, when a big rain came and he washed away, he washed down toward the ocean and ultimately towards this river, where he used his magic powers for evil. Monkey's a little frustrated because this is not the first bodhisattva pet that's turned into some giant monster in their way. Surely these Buddhas and bodhisattvas can keep their pets under control. But no, it's just another obstacle on the trip. However, Tripitaka is now safe and it's time to continue the journey. We still haven't figured out how to get across the river yet, because it's no longer frozen. But just as they're standing there wondering what to do, out of the water comes a giant turtle. And he thanks them because the palace that the Great King of Miracles was living in used to be his palace before the Great King of Miracles used his magic to take over. And so now the turtle has his home again, and he's very happy. And because of that, he's going to give them all a ride across the river. Tripitaka is very thankful, and so they all sit on the back of the turtle and they ride across the river. As they're riding across the river, Tripitaka asks if there's anything he can do to repay the turtle. And the turtle says, well, yes. I've been purifying myself and growing for years and years. I'm able to speak human speech, but when will I finally become human? Please ask Buddha for me and tell me the answer on your way back. And Tripitaka says, of course, I'll be happy to tell you the answer on the way back. This is not the first time he's told somebody he will see them on the way back or do something for them on the way back. Keep that in mind. And so that's the end of our episode, and also the end of the last episode that Whaley includes in his abridged version. All we have left is what happens when our heroes arrive in India, and what the return journey is like. We'll talk about that next time. Thanks for watching! You can click to subscribe or to watch the next video, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.